We already know that content created by artificial intelligence is not eligible for copyright protection, but we had an interesting conversation come up in the publishing space about whether or not publishers are able to stop a contract with an author and turn the rest of a project over to artificial intelligence to finish. Let's talk to everybody's favorite IP and entertainment lawyer, Tony, to find out more.
My name is Tony Iliakostas. I'm an adjunct professor of entertainment law and IP at New York Law School, and I have an Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok account called The IP Professor that's dedicated to all things intellectual property.
Tony, we've been hearing whispers in the publishing industry that a publisher may have reached out to an author and said, stop mid-project, and they are going to replace that author with artificial intelligence. Now, we have had the conversations on copyright protection and the use of artificial intelligence. We'll link all those videos down below. But is this something that they can legally do? What's going on with this?
So I honestly, like, this is such a trigger warning for me. Like, I feel like the cartoon characters that have like the vein with like the effect of like pulsating, and like if I could, I would turn into a train whistle with the smoke coming out of my ears. But this is such a red flag for a number of reasons. So first off, let's kind of address the elephant in the room. We've talked about before that anything created using artificial intelligence will never receive copyright protection, period. That is just a plain old fact. That is the cold, hard truth. So I'm honestly stunned that a publisher, knowing this precedent that has been laid out as recently as earlier this year from the DC District Court, ruling that anything AI generated cannot receive copyright protection, I'm stunned that a publisher would be so quick to embrace AI in that nature, knowing that they're in the business of registering the manuscripts, first editions, second editions, all the different versions of a book in the U.S. Copyright Office. So that's like one thing that's just like irking me to no end. But let's address the bigger issue here. The author has been severely disadvantaged by having her work replaced with a non-human for all intents and purposes. So what recourse does she have here? First, it's the plain old thing where you would have to look at the contract, read the letter of the contract to see what does it exactly prescribe. And in this circumstance, we really don't have much information, but there are a couple questions that I naturally have. Number one, did she sign a traditional publishing agreement? Or number two, did she sign an option contract? Let's address the option contract first, because the option contract is the kind of thing that would trigger this kind of behavior. The whole premise of an option contract is, I kind of call them non-committal contracts. They almost operate as a very much like a situationship in the publishing space, where you're just trying to get a feel of the relationship between the publisher and the author. Mm-hmm. You get a sense of, is it going to work? Is it not going to work? At the end of the day, there's a variety of different factors that could allow a publisher to want to keep working with the author, and that's mainly going to be if the draft looks good. So the premise of the option contract is that the publisher will pay the author, let's say, a sum of money to deliver a draft copy of the book. And if they're content with it, but it needs improvement, that's when they can kick in a second option, pay an additional sum of money, and then that's when the author would resume edits of the book. And basically, the option would keep kicking in until there's a final draft version of the book. Now, if the said author signed an option contract and they just weren't happy with the way the book was going and they decided not to renew their option and have AI do the rest of the work, that's when I think, and I'm, again, without any context whatsoever, that's the only circumstance that I could see the option contract, the use of AI working in a scenario like this, because you're not exercising the option. That, for all intents and purposes, could be viewed as something legal, or at least legally enforceable, because that's the publisher's right to decide not to work with the author if they choose not to renew the option. Now, I don't think that that's what happened here. I think that this specific author signed your traditional publishing agreement where they were paid an upfront fee to deliver, to begin the process of writing a book. They've been writing the book. They're up to maybe close to the delivery date of a draft, whatever it is. But publishing agreements always lay out a certain schedule where you get paid this amount of money if you deliver this draft by this date. You'll get this. You have to submit any additional edits by this date. It's laid out pretty succinctly and very clearly. I cannot see a world where that specific type of agreement prescribes some type of triggering event or that would cause the cancellation of that contract that would allow the use of AI. And let me reframe it this way. I don't see a world where, let's say a force majeure clause, or let's say a notice of termination, it exists in such a way that allows the publisher to just nilly-willy go in, say to the author, you can't write this book anymore because we're replacing you with AI, and they think that they could get away with it. Because at the end of the day, that type of behavior is blatantly breach of contract behavior. That is something that would qualify as a breach of contract cause of action. Because not only, I am sure that there are no contract terms in her publishing agreement that would allow for the use of AI, nor do I think that it's something that would even be inferred on a basic read of that publishing agreement. So all that to say, I really think that this is like your typical contract typo that you would find on a law school exam, where you have someone basically whose rights have been violated in some way, and now they have a massive lawsuit and waiting in the wings for them, and they could sue them on a basis of breach of contract. Because again, I can't see a world where there is something that is expressly written to or inferred in the contract that would allow this type of activity to take place. This doesn't qualify as a force majeure event. This isn't any sort of triggering event that is prescribed or I think approved in any sort of agreement. And I think that this is maybe even a cautionary tale for all authors out there that work with publishers moving forward, that now they're going to have to really write to it specifically that, hey, I don't want my work replaced with AI, and I do not endorse the use of artificial intelligence, generative AI for that matter, in any way, shape, or form. And I think that that's something that every author should come to terms with as they work with publishers going forward.
And so this is something, because it is now within the realm of possibility, that we need to be mindful of with our contracts as we are signing them with our traditional publishers. Make sure that you write this down somewhere, make a note, put it in your phone, do something so that when it comes to be your time to sign a new contract, you have it there for your lawyer to specifically make sure is a part of that contract. And if you're worried about your contracts with your publishers, now might be a great time to review those with a lawyer and to have a conversation with your publisher should you need to have that discussion before moving forward with anything else. If you do have questions on AI and publishing, we've got an entire playlist with Tony and with myself breaking down what you need to know on using AI and publishing legally, creatively, and ethically to make sure you're safe and legally protected and making the most out of what you can be doing with AI and publishing. So make sure you go through that down below. And as always, you can drop your questions here for Tony. He's coming back for upcoming episodes, and you can reach out to Tony on his social media. Tony, where can everybody find you?
You can find me on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at the IP Professor. And you can check out my entertainment law podcast called End Scene, with new episodes dropping every Friday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Drop your questions down below on AI and publishing, and follow along for upcoming episodes with Tony on the legal side of the publishing industry, and for daily videos helping you navigate the world of publishing, from your writing to your publishing to your marketing, to make this your most profitable and most stress-free year ever. We'll see you in the next episode.